the place that gives us the beauty and responsibility of communication, language, music, poetry, art.
He continues on there to say what he would like to do, and then he changes it. What's interesting about this is that this episode is, or the video there is in support of queer youth. And he's talking about, he makes innuendos to sexual activity. So 10 million Ukrainians starved to death while Walter Durante told the world, here are the facts. He won a Pulitzer for it. The New York Times never gave it back. That same spirit didn't die in 1930s. It just changed clothes, got a master's degree in education, and walked into your child's classroom wearing the friendly mask of social emotional learning. Hey friends, welcome back to Be Not Afraid. I'm Carrie Bartholomew, otherwise known as Cara Marcel. It's complicated, I know. I'm so glad to have you here. Today I'm going to talk about a rather heavy subject, which is all of Marxism, but it's important to understand where it came from. And as I was researching today and kind of like finishing everything up, again, sorry, it says 8:30 and it's now almost 9 o'clock. But I wanted to make sure that I could get as much information to you in the most concise and easy to swallow information. That's what I do. I am an educator, I'm a mom, and I care deeply that our kids are able to think freely and live in a free society rather than a socialist one. So thank you so much for joining me. We are on episode 4 of The Devil and Karl Marx. We're going to continue with talking about Gramsci, who I spoke about last week. Gramsci, while in prison, he wrote a bunch of letters and he realized that a violent revolution was not going to work in the West in Christian societies. And the reason it wouldn't work is because we had a middle class and people were comfortable. So he realized that in order to change society, he needed to change it culturally. So he sent people into the churches, they sent people into the government, and specifically as judges, and they sent people into higher education. Well, today we're going to talk about what else they did, which is they sent it into lower education. And that is where we are today. So Karl wasn't just an economist. He was kind of a religious fanatic in his atheism. He truly, truly hated God. And this idea that we don't have that in our education is simply wrong. So I'm just going to pull up a few pictures for you. This was the Holodomor. The Holodomor was in Ukraine. Durante, sorry, I want to make sure I get his name right. He was a reporter, and he was also called America's prostitute, because what he did is he went and he said whatever he was paid to say. He was wined and dined and even had like a secret secretary slash mistress while he was in Russia, but the people were starving. The people were literally dying on the streets, and he pretended that that was not happening. So I want to move into more of our slides here. Okay. So the same thing that happened back then is happening today. Gramsci called it hegemony. You don't need gulags if you can make the next generation want a revolution. You capture the teachers' colleges, the curriculum writers, the counselors, the school psychologists. You replace reading and writing and arithmetic with deconstruct your privilege. You affirm every single desire. Our kids couldn't possibly be held accountable. and you critique all that exists. None of this is conspiracy. I feel like that's really important to understand. None of this is conspiracy. There are two sides of teachers right now. There are teachers who are saying that this is conspiracy. We don't know what you're talking about. Oh, hush, you don't know anything. And then we have the people who come up to me and say, thank you for what you're doing. We literally cannot. But this stuff is genuinely in our schools. I'm going to show you a few pictures from social and emotional learning, a few pictures from ethnic studies, and then I'm going to show you where it comes from. So, the Gramscian strategy played out for almost 100 years. Again, this is that long march through the institutions starting in 1927. So we are almost there. We're almost at 100 years. The Long March didn't stop at the universities, though. Sorry, my dogs are going to start barking. It marched right down to the elementary school. And it came through with something called social and emotional learning. Now, we have this group, and it's called the Fetzer Institute. And this is where social and emotional learning comes from. I'm just going to check my chat really quickly. Tell you guys all, say hi. Making sure that you can hear me, because the last two times I did not have anybody hear me and I had to re-record it. So the reason why this is so important is because this stuff is right now in our schools. So let's go look at social and emotional learning. Let's go look at these competencies. And then if you go back to the video that I played at the beginning, these were the things the man was praising: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making. He was doing this chant as he's running around, and I should pull back my picture. He was doing this chant as he's running around, and he's saying responsible decision-making, and he's praising the earth, and he's pretending to be this pagan whatever. All of these things are happening in schools. This is what teachers are getting enrichment classes in two-spiritness, in one with the earthness, really in paganism as part of our schools. Now remember, people argue all the time. The biggest thing that people get is keep your Christianity out of our schools. And quite frankly, I don't have a problem with that, because I believe that once you bring Christianity into schools, then everybody else is going to want their thing. And we're already watching that happen, where I already saw people say, well, if you get the Bible, then you better get this and you better get that. The difference is that the Bible is really what the founding fathers taught themselves to read with. So learning with that, and with the great Latin books, that is our history. So that's not going off into some random thing. Whereas social and emotional learning, the spirituality being brought into the school, that is. Now we have to wonder, where did this spirituality come from? And that spirituality starts off, let me pull up my slides again. We've got our ethnic studies. So before Gramsci, we start off with Marx, and we start off with his kind of ideas, his dialectic, his oppressive narrative. And then, of course, Gramsci takes it on, and then Durante in the press. So the press becomes these experts, this expert class of people that you're not supposed to question. And again, this happens in the 1920s. So in the 1920s, we start with getting liars in the press. And we have this massive problem because we believe in freedom of the press. But if they're lying to us and we can't hold them accountable, then we have a serious problem. And our culture, our minds start to, as adults, believe what it is that we're seeing in the paper, because why would they lie? But they were lying. And so today what we have is something called digital media literacy. And digital media literacy, remember, as I've said before, that these words always sound great. Yes, I want my kid to be able to navigate the digital world. Sure. But when somebody tells you who the expert is and who you should listen to, and the only right people, then you have a problem, because who's determining what is good? And if I believe something's good over here, but you believe something's good over here, how do we mesh that? How do we get along? And the thing is that these programs are not about taking this side and taking this side and compromising. They're about telling your child that there is one right way. And oftentimes that right way is the crazy pagan thing that was going on in the beginning of this episode. Oftentimes the right way is you have to accept that there's 112 genders. That's where digital media literacy, that there's factual people, there are approved sources, and you must trust the approved sources and nobody else. Anybody else, and you're a backwoods thinker. I am missing my notes here. So I want to go to So on the surface, social and emotional learning, it sounds harmless. It even sounds good, right? It sounds like let's make sure that our kids are healthy and balanced. Healthy itself is a different meaning than what we normally mean it as. When they're talking about healthy, they're talking about mental health. When they're talking about mental health, more often than not, there's some social justice stuff tied into it. And I will show you some pictures on that. We think of it as helping kids manage emotions, build relationships, make good decisions. But again, you have to constantly ask, what is good? Who's determining what good is? So we have this thing, and it was social and emotional learning to begin with, and then it becomes transformative social and emotional learning, and that is about transforming society. So we have this man, his name is John Fetzer. John Fetzer, he goes to a place in California, and he studies. I want to make sure it was California. He goes and he studies, and it's, basically like a yoga retreat. He reads about the Dalai Lama. He reads all sorts of religions, and he starts to kind of pick and choose what he thinks should be the right religion. And one of the interesting things that I found about him is that he literally decides his business decisions using a Ouija board. Now, the Fetzer Institute is where CASTLE's going to come from. CASTLE is a collaborative for social and emotional learning. So we have our kids learning from from roots of people who started with Ouija boards. We have our kids learning from the Dalai Lama. And you may think that's great. He's, this peaceful guy. Sure. He also admits that he's a Marxist. So we need to stop thinking that Marxism is this conspiracy theory, because it's simply not. So so they've captured the teachers' colleges, the curriculum, the writers, the counselors, the school psychologist, all of it utterly captured. And you replace all of these really good things, these things that bring kids joy and make them believe in potential, and instead you constantly fill their minds over and over again with this oppressor-oppressed negative kind of narrative. Let me pull up some more imagery here. So there's Gramsci in prison. We get told to trust the teachers. We've been told this since 2020. We've been told that we must trust the teachers at all the time, for that they are the experts. There are a lot of teachers who are experts, and I find them to be more of the humble variety. And then there are a lot of people that are told, while they're learning this hegemony, while they're learning critical race theory, while they're learning gender queer theory, while they're learning these things, They're told they're the experts and they're the only ones who can fill your child's mind with this information. So they've been captured, and they've been captured since about the 1980s. And what that looks like in school is telling white kids to process their guilt. It looks like every child has to affirm gender identity. And it looks like little kids especially, being afraid to go to sleep at night because they think the world is going to end due to climate change. All of that is happening as equity replaces equality. So what this is Gramsci's ideas wrapped up in a cute way. I mean, you can easily teach kids about climate change by having them meditate and extend their lunch period. But you're putting your ideas, and while they're meditating to extend their lunch period, you're telling them, "Isn't it so hard that the rest of the world feels like this on a regular basis? If only the West, or if only America wasn't so selfish. You could give up one meal so that somebody wouldn't be hungry in another country, couldn't you?" And you start to seed these ideas in children. Now, I understand that people think, well, maybe it's not fair that kids in other countries don't have the same privileges. Yeah, but guess what? Maybe a lesson people should learn is that life is not fair. That's that's truth, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. So another issue is that totalitarianism, which we talked about last week, totalitarianism is not just telling people you must follow rules, but telling them you must believe what we tell you to believe. So totalitarianism trains the kids how to feel before they know how to think. Everything is about your feelings. You guys, we have high school rooms that have stuffies for our high schoolers to go in and cuddle if they're having a hard day and they can't make it through a class. What service are we really offering these kids? Really? If they can't get through an hour, or really it's just 50 minutes, right? So if they can't get through 50 minutes and then get to their next break in high school, are we doing a good service for these kids? I'm just going to check my chat. Okay. Moving back. So we are giving our kids this disservice. We're not giving them everything that they need, and we're stealing from them. That's how I see it. Is that we're actually stealing from these kids under the name of let's just trust the teacher. So one of the things that I found out about today was called the the militant fairies, or the radical fairies, and that's where that video comes from. The militant fairies, they start off with groups like MAMBLA, which is Man Boy Love Association. So these people and their ideas used to be the far, far end of the spectrum. And now they're very much normalized inside education, inside K-12 education. Your safe and welcoming schools parallels look just like the parallels that this group wanted to have. So again, with feminism, even though they're men, with feminism, with the earth is our god type of thing. And one of the things, and this was kind of creepy, was was the occult. So we're talking about Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley literally is where some of this stuff comes from. So when you follow the cultural trail, Aleister Crowley's saying is, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. It's beyond live and let live. It's do whatever the heck you want to, and nobody will judge you. In our schools, oftentimes I see a phrase that says, "Be curious, not judgmental." So that's something that our children are learning. Be curious, not judgmental. Never judgmental. Aleister Crowley, I can't even tell you all of the things that he was into, but he definitely considered himself a Satanist, and he definitely had a lot of sexual proclivities that a lot of people would probably find disturbing. And he was very much into drugs. So the unofficial anthem of the modern self. It's the perfect moral operating system for a generation raised on social and emotional learning. Just do whatever feels right. Do whatever your feelings tell you to do, because the most important thing is your feelings. So I want you to look at the radical fairies again. They're a self-described cultural, spiritual, and their focuses are cultural, spiritual, and ecological. They're founded by the communist, this is his term, not mine, Harry Hay. Their shared values, once again, feminism, earth worship, individual responsibility. Now, we all look at individual responsibility and say, good, I want my kids to do their homework and clean up their rooms. Absolutely great. But individual responsibility for these people means something different. Individual responsibility means nobody can stop me from doing what I want to do. And in this video, I cut it off because it's kind of gross. The guy, like, he makes a sexual innuendo, but the video says specifically that this is radical fairies for LGBTQ youth. So I'm going to play it again for you. Just a moment.
Protecting those children who need to grow up queer. We are going to call for the unborn children. We are making space for you.
So he said the unborn children who are going to be queer, we're making space for you. The unborn children who are going to grow up queer.
This circle is cast and will travel with us. Can I have Donald, you'll be calling in the air?
That's an interesting
I call on the spirit of the East. The springtime. The rising of the sun. The place that gives us the beauty and responsibility of communication.
Beauty,
Language, music, poetry, art. I want.
And then he says, I want to F. And I cut it off. Because this man is talking to kids and he says, I want to F. And then he like makes an actor's moment where he has like an actor pause to let everybody know exactly what he was going to say. And then he changes what he's going to say. So, but remember what they say. They say responsibility. They say the power of communication. All of this stuff, you guys, is in social and emotional learning. And I promise you, it is a religion. That is the goal. Social and emotional learning was designed to be religion in school, but not only to be religion, to replace religion, and most specifically to replace Christian religion, so that anything that God said, any kind of moral, any kind of a moral backing, and you shouldn't do this, should be removed. And you can have the drag Jesus, but it's a Jesus who doesn't judge at all in any way, shape, or form. And that's simply not biblical. So for the Christians sending their kids to school, that's what's coming. Again, I will show you. So it's very hard for me to figure out the whole, like, how they do this. Let me just pull up some more of the pictures while I'm doing this. All right. So that's Randy Weingarten. Randy Weingarten, let me choose one of these instead. Randy Weingarten just said that she was going to partner, and she's the president of the AFT, that she is going to partner with the World Economic Forum for a global curriculum for all children. That's what's going on in public schools. Okay. Socialism is presented as something that's strong and that is about bringing people together. And my problem with this is that they don't show students the other side of socialism. You do get some good teachers who do, but even at the Capitol, the people that I would call the squad of Utah, they said, we don't want the kids to learn about capitalism. We don't want the kids to learn about socialism. It's quote unquote not the time. Meanwhile, we have democratic socialists in Utah and really I think in just about every state. Okay. So this one says no sustainability without spirituality. And this is directly from the Fetzer Institute. It's small, so I'll blow it up, make it a little bit bigger. War, environmental degradation, racism. It appears that polarization has a death grip. So you're not supposed to be polarized. You're just supposed to think and have a global consciousness. And they actually call the consciousness Christ consciousness, meaning that we're all Christ. This is the Fetzer Institute, where Castle comes from, where all of the framework for social and emotional learning comes. Once again, I'm terrible at the whole photos, but where all of the framework where social and emotional learning comes from starts with the Fetzer Institute. It is the goal is religion here. Let me pull up some more. So I just spent a little bit of time. Okay. So I spent a little bit of time on ChatGPT and I asked it which of the radical pagan, the radical fairy group, which of its kind of policies does social and emotional learning also have? And here's just some examples. So transformative SEL and practice moving beyond emotions and social analysis. And then I do have to open it up in order to see them. These often include discussions of personal identity categories, group identity, peer belonging, race and identity. Units include, let me just pull one of these little guys. Maybe it'll, okay, there we go. So units include empathy across differences, understanding bias. You guys, this is a struggle session. Today I was talking to somebody and they said, well, having them do group projects is kind of a struggle session. I wouldn't agree with that. Personally, I have group projects all the time. Well, not all the time, but like once a quarter. But that's not what a struggle session is. A struggle session is they take your beliefs, your values, sit you in the middle of the room and tell you why you're wrong. And everybody tells you why you are wrong. Oftentimes it beats people down. There have been principals, I'm sure I've said this before, there have been principals who have removed themselves from this world because they've had to go through struggle sessions and they genuinely thought they were already on board with all of these things. This is where attacking a person based on their race or their faith comes in, or their straight, their heterosexualness, those things. So you go in and you just yell and scream and tell people you have privilege. It's not fair. You've oppressed me for so long, blah, 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 blah. And the person just sits there, and their point with social and emotional learning, their point of where they've mastered it is where they're okay with you talking to them that way. And that has happened in some of our schools. I'm familiar with a school where the kids were supposed to write a play, and for whatever reason, the play needed to have sex in the play. And one student wasn't okay with it and went home and he told his parent, and the school director, the play director came in and like said, "Yes, so our classroom is a safe place." Remember those words, safe place. Our classroom is a safe place. We are a family. What happens in our classroom stays in our classroom. And so the kid had to sit there and hear that people felt betrayed that he would talk to his parents about what he felt uncomfortable about. That is a social and emotional learning experience. So again, it sounds harmless, but it is absolutely not. Totalitarianism is brutal. Like I said, it makes adults not want to exist. So imagine doing that to kids. And again, they feel like if they expose the kids to this early, then in the long run, they'll be good people. So the Fetzer Institute, one world, one religion, and one classroom. So I want to read to you straight from the Fetzer Institute, the same outfit whose founder, John E. Fetzer, spent decades at Camp Chesterfield, consulting Ouija boards, talking to the dead, and sampling every single religious tradition to make up his own. These are his own words. In his kind of founder statement, he says, a world peace, a world government, a world financial system, a world language, a world religion, a world of one mankind. Does that sound like there's room for the individual in that? He literally wanted one humanity under one spiritual umbrella. He doesn't want Christianity. He doesn't even want a vague kind of theism. He wants an occult. In my head, what I see is some California lefty who's had everything handed to them, and they're probably on some kind of hallucinogenic as they're coming up with these ideas. Now, here's the problem. Fetzer's supporters have had billions put into our schools, tens of millions into education, into consciousness studies, courageous conversations, spiritual formation. And all of these land in our public schools. And sometimes, even with all that money, we pay for it. Under the banner of SEL, under the banner of, well, our kids were traumatized because of a pandemic. They all have problems now. We need to give the teachers some kind of toolkit. And with that toolkit, they're going to be able to better serve our children. And I am not blaming the teachers because they don't know. They're like in a pot, the whole frog in the pot, slow boiled. And yes, kids in the classroom today are harder to manage. They are not the same lock and face forward, eyes respectful. You can get that. I mean, some places do still command that, but the majority don't. And they're not allowed to because we have something called restorative justice. Another hokey idea of like peace circles and the restorative circles where the person who victimizes you gets to sit and tell you why they did it. And you're just supposed to say, oh, okay, I forgive you. We've seen this out in courts where somebody SAs someone and then they say, oh, well, you've been through a hard time. Your life has been really hard. I think we recently saw Jennifer Newsom, the governor of California's wife, make excuses for people who are in prison. That is restorative justice. But our kids are being taught it like that's a normal way to be, as opposed to actions have consequences. So that is a hard thing to understand. And nobody calls it religion in class, because if they did, then the same people couldn't say, keep your religion out of public schools. But they do get to say, keep your religion out of public schools, because they don't put this as a religion. Instead, what they say is this is evidence-based. And then when you go and look at the evidence, you find out that it is people who already supported this to begin with that are giving testimonies of how it works. Always social justice. Remember, again, I'm going to prove to you that it's a religion. So your taxpayer dollars, local school boards are now subsidizing the exact spiritual counterfeit that John Fetzer wanted. Your dollars are paying for this for all of our kids. And we wonder, we say, oh, well, that's just a crazy fad. It's not a crazy fad. That crazy, the insane things that we see are being taught as normal in our classrooms. So we're just making more people like this. We're making more fragile people. We're stealing language. So when you and I think of resilience, we probably think, okay, you've got to run and you've got an obstacle course and you've got to make it through the obstacle course. And when you make it at the end and you're super tired, but you finally got there, wow, congratulations, you've done it. When they say resilience, they mean you take a rubber band and you twist it and you pull 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 it. And what that means, that pulling and pulling and pulling, is really like you're pulling the ideas. So say you send your child to school to learn their ABCs and their 1, 2, 3s, but you, as a parent, as a very involved parent, have taught them their morals and their values. And you say you go to church on Sundays and you've got certain things that you want for your child. Well, they start to tell your kid, well, not everybody goes to church. So we don't want to judge and we don't want to say anything. Oh, it's Christmas, so we don't want to say anything about what you believe about Christmas. We can let these other groups, because they haven't had the chance before, because they're marginalized. But you can't say anything. And your child needs to sit there and go, okay, okay. And the more they say okay, the more the rubber band is pulled and pulled and pulled. And that's what they're calling resilience now. The fact that your child takes their brainwashing, that's resilience now. I'm seeing something in the chat. I'm seeing a lot in the chat. Thank you for explaining to those that are still in the dark. I'm just going to take a look here. Schools in my areas are very much pushing trauma onto children. Yes. The thing is that they believe that if they push that trauma onto children and then they're the ones there to pull them out of it, then they have gotten new recruits, might be a good word. I think another word would be converts. Because again, these people who say this isn't a religion are lying to you. They're lying to you. And I just want to stop for just a moment and to tell you, right now there's a ton of people running for offices. Elections are coming up. And I had somebody that I was talking to, and they said, well, I agree with you at heart. So they agree with me at heart, but they don't have the guts to say, no, this is wrong. Shouldn't vote for those kind of people. There's a ton of people who will do the wrong thing because it commands respect. Don't vote for them, because they will irreparably, maybe not even irreparably, because there are people the good news is there are people who get out of this. There are people who wake up. There are young people who go, what the heck is this assignment? I'm not doing it. And so there is that kind of good news. But yes, traumatizing your kids is what they feel is their responsibility, as long as they're the ones there to say, oh, I'm so sorry you've been through all of this. Let me be your new trusted adult. So the poet ex patron saint of nothing. Yes, patron saint of nothing. I actually love it. Mirrors and windows. My kids do not need exposure to drugs and murder. Yes. Yes, I love that. My kids do not need exposure to drugs and murder, but school wants empathy for murderers. Exactly. I always say, like, when you look through a window, you become less narcissistic. But you're absolutely right. We don't need to expose our kids to something to intentionally traumatize them. And that's the new evidence that we should purposely expose them to things that are beyond the purview of what a school should be doing. And I promise you there's a solution. I promise you that there are happy and healthy and thriving kids who aren't going into this place. And if you do have to talk about something dark, I'm teaching ancient history right now. There's a lot of dark, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of gore. But you find the heroes and you tell them the stories of the heroes, and that's what they leave with. And we're not doing that. We're intentionally telling our kids the deepest, darkest things and calling it enlightenment. And that is who Marx was. If you read his poetry, it is dark. There isn't hope. But yet that's what we're adopting. And I understand that so many people will say, I don't even know who Marx is. Or my favorite, when the silly little lefties say, you mean Groucho Marx? And that's literally a tactic from Saul Alinsky to use to mock whatever. So like we'll see at the new the No Kings rallies, you'll see people in stupid costumes, inflatable frogs or whatever. And the reason why is so that you don't see how serious what they really want to do is. So they just, it's frustrating. Good evening. Yes, I would love it if the Gulag Archipelago was mandated reading. I think that's what that says. I've got a little block over here. Mandatory reading. Yes, I just saw a bunch of young men who just decided that they're going to read A Brave New World. And I know A Brave New World has some very disturbing things in it, but so does our world. And if they're old enough, and these boys are all just barely 18, if they're old enough, I think, and if they have a parent there to kind of, answer any questions they might have, that's maybe a good thing for them. Let me go back to my notes again. You guys, thank you for bearing with me with the whole note thing, because I'm still trying to learn all of this stuff. And all I want to do is, I say all the time, I don't want to be an influencer. I just want to have influence, and I just want to help people see what's going on. So let's see. Gramsci in a cardigan. Yeah. So he wants to cook up his own universal religion. Now, where do you think he gets his religion from? His favorite person is the Dalai Lama. And again, the Dalai Lama flat out says, I am a Marxist. That's what he's saying. And absolutely meditation, yoga, all of that is in school. And I don't understand how it's not considered religion. So you have to think about words like mindfulness. That is a word that you will see all over. If you are just starting to get into this and just starting to figure out what in the world's going on, go to your school district page. Go to the little search bar and type in mindfulness and see what comes up. You're going to find stuff. I live in a small town, and I'm finding plenty. They don't call it a religion class. They call it inner science, emotional literacy, digital media literacy. All of it is about changing what your child thinks, what they know is true. It's about telling them these certain, very specific things are the only thing that's okay. One of the main people for Castle, formerly, I think he has retired from it or switched on to something else. Actually, he has, because he's taken on the Dignity Index, which is the adult version of SEL. So so he's talking and he's like, if only we could just remove that area and completely change it to people like us. And his name's Tim Shriver. Honestly, it's the closest thing I've ever seen to Adolf. I mean, and I've met him in person, and it creeped me out, because this is a man who really truly believes that he is the definition of good. And if you don't think like him, you don't even deserve to have your name said when you are killed. And one of the things that I found when I was looking at this today was that the Dalai Lama says, force for good. Well, that same language is being said right now as a person who arguably justified Charlie Kirk's killing is going to be the commencement speaker at UVU, which is Utah Valley University, the school where Charlie was assassinated. This state is fully committed to social and emotional learning. There are church camps that have it as a focus, social and emotional learning. So they call it inner science, emotional literacy, or cultivating compassion. But make no mistake, this is a catechism for the one world faith. He says it. I wish I would have gotten that. Maybe I did. Let me check and see it with my notes again. No, it's just Happy Kids. Let me go back through, because he actually says that that is his goal, a one world faith. This, if you haven't seen it, is ethnic studies. This is yet another thing, another way that the kids are supposed to accept opinion, accept radical, bigoted opinion as fact, and just swallow it. Just become, remember, resilient. Just stretch and stretch and stretch and look at this and go. And literally on the next page of this, it says teachers need to write down and observe how the child is taking the lesson. A lesson on Marxism. What you can't see down on the bottom here is that this is ethnic studies, but underneath it, there's about 15 different genders that the kids are supposed to be able to identify in order to move on. This is for 11th and 12th graders. What do you think? Well, you better think the right thing or you won't get the job. Here's their competencies. Again, think about those fairies: self-awareness, self-management, more self-awareness, relationship skills. Do you offend anyone when you speak? I do. Responsible decision making. Responsible decision making means that you are considering other people even if you shouldn't have to. We just did our taxes and found out that we owe, and that is a very hard thing to know, when I know that there are NGOs taking our money and giving it to other people. But there's no responsible decision making. There's no thought for the people who are in that situation, right? It's only the good people. Only the good people matter. The other people we don't care at all about, and they decide who's good. So I asked my class, my high school class, we did terraforming, and I asked them, I said, I had a list of questions, and they were like, if If society needs X and you have this, are you obligated to give this to someone? And watching these kids sit and think, and originally they start off with, yeah, I know. And then you're like, wait a second. Did you say in this situation, this particular situation, and teaching them how to think deeper and watching them go, wait a second, that doesn't make sense in that kind of situation, but maybe in that kind of situation, that is an education. It is not when you walk in and you say, here's the new way to think, accept it. That is the problem with social and emotional learning. So Aleister Crowley, he was a special type of guy. He was here's where it is. So Harry Hay, shared values, feminism, earth worship, individual responsibility rather than traditional authority, and the revival of, mind you, this is in the 80s, revival of two-spirit identities. We have people coming and teaching our teachers for enrichment about two-spirit identities, which means basically more than one gender. So they're teaching them this in schools where our academic levels are not amazing. So why are there extra I can't think of what the word is, but when teachers go and get extra training, um why is that the focus? It's just a question. So these are the same circles where grown men act like animals. We saw that in ritual. They reject hetero thought. Do you want that for your kids? Do you want them to reject hetero thought or to think of the heterosexual, specifically white male? But it can be any male because you can be white adjacent if you have the wrong thoughts. This is their this this is the expert science. So and they always frame Christianity as the oppressor. You guys, this is not fringe anymore. This is right in front of our faces. This is in our classrooms. It's in teacher trainings. It's in Pride Weeks. And it's in our safe and welcoming, all-inclusive schools. So it's Gramsci and Crowley, plus Marx's call to critique all that exists. Your child should be able to explain all the things that they want you to explain and not think for themselves. That's what it means to critique everything that exists. They think, these people who are into this, they think, oh, I'm so smart and I'm so enlightened because I can find a problem anywhere and point out. And as I point out, I get my lamb's blood. I get my Passover. And I think that that's genuinely why so many people are embracing this, especially people who have, comfortable lives or maybe even are affluent. I think that's why they're the people who are picking this up and saying, yes, give this to me, because they want to absolve themselves. And in the meantime, they're kind of making a cancer. So just like Walter Durante, the fashionable prostitute of the New York Times who hid the Holodomor. Did you even know what it was? I would love it in the comments if you tell me if you knew what the Holodomor was, because I didn't. Somehow I never learned that in school. Kind of like our kids not being allowed to learn about socialism when there's so many immigrants here who fled because of socialism, who took who took lower jobs, right? I have friends who are in that category, engineers to janitors. So they take a lower job just to get away, just to have a chance at freedom. And they can't even talk about freedom in the classroom because that could take up time for social and emotional learning. Today's education establishment lies to your children about the body count of every socialist experiment while teaching them to hate this country. And as they've miseducated, which is the strategy, It's the only reason why they would do this, is if it was intentional. They are starving these kids of truth. And I watch it in the classroom. I watch a kid who has learned via a TikTok video, and then they come into class and we start like, oh, here's a whole new world, buddy. And you watch their faces and they're like, oh. And honestly, you guys, I can't leave my classroom on time because I usually have about 5 kids, usually boys, who are just like, can I ask you about this? And can I ask you about this? And can I ask you about this? Because they're hungry for an education. And this is robbing them of it. This is robbing them of it so that freaking Tim Shriver, who is of the Kennedys, can feel good about himself. And your children are being robbed of their chance to prosper, because that's not equitable. And I would bet you, just like in tech, how the millionaires in tech don't let their kids don't expose their kids to other tech, to phones and everything else. I would bet you that the people who are creating this garbage, I would bet you they don't do it to their kids. What do you think? So they are not only starving our kids, but then they feed them a steady diet of grievance and a steady diet of emotion. And they tell people in the middle of riots that if you're white, you should get out there and be a shield. And the person believes it because that's what they learned in school. So I want to end where the mask comes all the way off. The Dalai Lama, the same smiling face on every yoga studio. All of the stuff about compassion curriculum has repeatedly said, I am a Marxist. Really? I don't think you're starving, which is what tends to happen when people adopt Marxism. And you have this smiling, happy face. Well, that's because all of your needs are met, which doesn't tend to happen to people who live in socialist or Marxist societies. Just going to go one more time, take a look at my notes. I would love it. Yes. Whoever said that I'm local, please get involved. I'm not doing this on my Moms for America page, but that's generally where to catch me. They start with trauma. They start with trauma. Reading in middle school here. Kite Runner. Yeah. I believe Kite Runner, if you tell me who the author is, I think I've actually interviewed that author and we had a great conversation. She actually said that that book was not made for middle schoolers. If that's the right book. Is that the book where the girl gets, she's under a bed while her mom or while someone else gets assaulted? It starts younger. Yep. The worldview is mostly developed by 8. So they go, oh, yes, exactly. Exactly. As early as they can get them. That's why they want all of these free preschools. So they can start training them on that. You'll see. If you are looking at a preschool and you see social and emotional learning, run. Run. I know in the UK, they start comprehensive sex ed at preschool. And the things I know that these people have said, you can go look up the videos. I mean, I have videos with the comprehensive sex people. It is frightening. And it's social and emotional learning because be curious, not judgmental. Yes, the college institutions are very much taken. I have a senior this year and we are very, very much tossed at what to do because once you see what we saw on September 10th. Yes. Yes. Yes, our governor is a progressive. I will tell you, I went straight in and I saw him on, I showed him the ethnic studies curriculum, and he didn't care. He pretended to care, but then he turned around and he endorsed the candidate who would keep it in our schools. By the way, we're making voter information public. When Russia starved Ukraine, yes. Yes, thank you. I honestly had never learned about this before. They also don't say a lot about Pol Pot, Mao. I know. I went to the school board and I said, this looks just like what Mao did. And I know that because I've interviewed people who've come here from communist China. And the whole board looked at me like, what? We have no idea what you're saying. And it is. Go and look. I have a video with Xi Van Fleet, but go and watch. She's gotten a lot larger. So go and watch her on Dad Saves America. She does like a 2-hour explaining what happened. And when she explained what happened, I just sat there with my jaw dropping, going, that's exactly what's happening here. Exactly. And we let it in. We let it in because funding. I don't even think people let it in with I just, in my experience, I haven't seen a school board that cares all that much about the kids. So I don't think they let it in because they were concerned about children. I think they let it in because, ooh, what funding comes with that? I do not remember learning the atrocities other than the Holocaust until real-time Tiananmen Square in college credit class. Yeah. And rainbow flags at your pediatrician. Yes, again, you never know. They might be conservative at heart. I would just say, don't vote for these people. And you guys, please like and share this. And yeah, if you're local, reach out to me. I would love to get you involved because we definitely need more people who are paying attention. Anyways, that's what I found this week. And next week we'll keep going. So thank you so much for joining me. Have a great night. Bye.